Joki Karanja, and I am the Manager, Regulatory Research and Policy Analysis at EPRA, and it is my great honor to be your host at the 5th Annual EPRA Research and Innovation Conference. May we all be upstanding for the National and East African Community Anthems.
Creation, justice the ocean of defender, unity, peace and liberty, plenty be found within the borders. Mungu twaomba uilinde Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuimarike, umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
You may now have your seats. Once again, welcome to Day 2 of the EPRA Research and Innovation Conference 2024. It's good to see most of you back from yesterday after a very heavy day. The energy transition is not merely a concept. It's a global call to action. It is a fundamental shift in how we produce, distribute, and consume energy, enhancing energy security and fostering sustainable development. Today, I'm honored to hear from distinguished panelists, each representing helix, government, academia, and industry. Their collective expertise and diverse perspectives will offer a holistic view of the collaborative forces that drive innovation and policy. Before we get to the discussions, allow me to welcome Dr. Mutua, our Director, Economic Regulation and Strategy, on stage to share a recap of yesterday's proceedings. Karibu Daktari.
Thank you very much, Joki. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Our Director General, Daniel Kipto, Balgori, ministry representatives, our judges, guests. I just want to give some of the key highlights for what happened presentations on various papers. And it's good because we can go plenary so that we can reflect on some of the issues that came up. With this year's theme, Research and Innovation Conference being energy transition, researchers from different backgrounds immerse us in their elaborate and well-articulated projects and proposals, the projects that were presented. We had the first presentation on electric mobility, the role of competition law and policy in e-mobility in Kenya. And here from the Competition Authority of Kenya, because the way we are organizing our research is that we also partner and collaborate with other institutions as well and universities. The key highlights of this paper, in terms of enforcing competition, law and policy in promoting and safeguarding competition, protecting energy, concern that it be the shift to e-mobility, product safety, quality of electricity charging infrastructure, switching costs, and collusion that involves non-competitive agreements. Some of the recommendations that came from this paper was development of rules, regulations and guidelines for electric of competition law to promote an equal playing field and establishing of regulators, because legislators need to work together so that we can stimulate to implement e-mobility. The second paper was on the perspective of the potential impacts of the two-wheeler electric motorcycles market in Kenya. This was done by Halois Butura of EED Advisory. And some of the highlights from the paper was that the issue of fuels affects demand of e-motorcycles, which clearly came out, and so is the need to consider the the social and cultural integration in energy transition. E-mobility is very efficient. Given options, consumer will choose the most cost-efficient power, meaning that if the cost of electricity encourages riders, the border riders, to switch on to e-mobility. Some of the recommendations that came from this paper was maintenance of tax incentives for e-mobility. There is a feeling we need to retain and ensure that the government does not take away the incentives they have already given e-mobility for sustainability and predictability. Implement policies that would encourage battery swapping, revenue to vendors, and harmonize tax and planning to avoid standing e-mobility growth. The third paper was on the exchange rate depreciation and the cost of electric power in Kenya, customers and utilities impact by Newton from EPRA. Key highlights was the issue of foreign exchange, which is not trivial and cannot be ignored as becoming a risk to the energy sector. Negotiations have been done. Negotiations to look at possibilities of introducing local currency denominated PPS. But of course, given the investments that are done in foreign currency, again, that influence from foreign currency will still be in our system. The key recommendation from the paper is CBK should enhance, and my colleagues from CBK were here yesterday. It's good we continue strengthening the monetary policy so that macroeconomic dynamics are stronger in the country. The local currency PPS should be a priority for the country, both in negotiations of existing PPS and also the PPS that will be coming. And we have seen a lot of interest, like, for example, the small hydro power plants, some of the biomass projects, we have seen them embracing local currency element in the PPS, which is very good because then it removes the risk from currency. And then also the EPRA should harmonize forex recovery mechanism to limit allowable eligible costs that could be transferred to consumers. So that is for us, such that, again, we have to be very proactive and ensure that as a regulator that only prudent incurred costs, of course, are incurred. There are certain currency costs which we feel should be absorbed by the utilities and not necessarily be passed on to consumers. The fourth paper was the map behind the roadmap introducing a geospatial energy model for utility-scale solar and wind power build-up by Michelle Akute and our colleagues. And the key highlights, the least cost involves the power sector and how the various stakeholders are able to collaborate in energy planning. It was noted that by integrating the geospatial data on solar and wind locations in a capacity expansion model, we could deliver stakeholder-ready roadmaps for investment in the solar PV and wind power. Some of the recommendations that came out of this paper was to prioritize potential sites to invest in solar PV and wind power, means of energy and petroleum, KPSC, KETRACO, and even EPRA. We should be able to see where do we have, the strengths in terms of resources, mapping out where solar is good, wind is good in the country, and looking at the demand and load centers, and be able to plan, even as we transition to power markets. And also inform the renewable, this will also inform the renewable when, to determine when, how much, and where to locate these plants. Then implications on grid expansion on land. Again, we live and the compensation, when it comes to land manage these things better. The fifth paper was on the design implementation of the real formats using Internet of Things. This was done by Faith of KPLC. I must say, like we are seeing a lot of young people being, very, very, thoughtful and yearning to solve problems. And I think there's an engineer, this is a practical engineer who is in the field, and they are coming with a model to try and use technology to be able to monitor and maintain the system, which is very good. And there's need for predictive maintenance instead of a reacting approach, and energy access and energy efficiency to ensure that faults on transformers are detected before they become fertile. A recommendation from this paper, organized settlement of installations is very key in sourcing capabilities and also reduce cost of installation. There is a reduce cost of installing power in the country. The paper number 6 was an assessment of the role of socioeconomic factors on the adoption of and utilization of clean energy among home owners in Nairobi by Caroline Odhiambo and Emily Odiek. These are EPRA staff. I was encouraged because, I know Caroline is one of our administrators. And, it's good that people begin to think that they can also solve problems. And the reason I say this is because sometimes you may have a role like an office administrator, but as a legislator, you usually observe a lot of things, and also you interact with customers. And I was encouraged because it is the customers that are influencing the way people like Caroline are thinking today, and also they want to form to resolve issues around the energy sector. So key highlights from paper was emphasis on the importance of using clean energy and clean cooking in line with the global fight against greenhouse gas emissions. And that came out clearly was the policy should include small-scale projects and factor in social consideration in their models when we are implementing certain policy directives. Lastly, we had a paper on leveraging machine learning for sustainable development in Kenya by Catherine Asena from the National Oil Company of Kenya, that is NOC. The key highlights from this paper was need to take advantage of technology for energy efficiency, develop a data-driven culture, provide resources for data collection, and above all, reduce bureaucracies. Because sometimes we have a lot of bureaucracies around data, and it's important that we embrace technology and eliminate most of these bureaucracies that tend to bring in barriers to adoption of policies and adoption of technologies. Recommendations from the paper, there needs to emphasize detailed regional energy statistics is important, predict future needs and the policy impacts associated with that, and lastly, craft sustainable, equitable energy policies and solutions. So that is what, in a nutshell, what we went through yesterday for those who are joining us this morning. And definitely today is going to be a great day. I don't know whether Njoki, this is the time I also invite the DG to say something. Yeah, so with that, I want to thank the presenters yesterday for the great work, and also everybody for the role we played, the questions that came through, all of the judges, we really appreciate. So at this point, I would like to invite our Director General, Daniel Kipto Bagoria, to make his remarks this morning. Thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You can see we are full house again today. Thank you very much for coming. It gives me very good pleasure again to welcome you to this day 2 of our Research and Innovation Conference, which is under the banner, The Energy Transition. As John has walked us through, I'm very pleased myself that we have seen very good papers that have been submitted demonstrating various aspects of the energy transition. I was quite fortunate to go through 2 sittings yesterday, particularly e-mobility, where there were quite a number of questions raised and solutions proposed, which is more important. Solutions that were proposed with respect to e-mobility and respect of battery storage, and where we are going on matters such as green hydrogen and the energy solution storage that we are looking at as a country. These technologies, as I've said, will offer us a very significant potential to transform our energy use towards cleaner and greener alternatives. However, to fully harness this potential, we as a research community need to develop innovative solutions that are tailored specifically to meet our context as Kenya. These emerging areas are gaining global traction and attention, and we require collaborative efforts in these fields to significantly enhance our position as a leading research hub. As I mentioned in my remarks yesterday, the research community plays a very critical role in bridging the gap between the challenges faced in our communities and the information that is required to tailor their solutions. For those who were here yesterday, we experienced well-presented studies on e-mobility and the role that policy and competition law will play in their adoption. We also received a demonstration of the benefits of electric 2- and 3-wheelers and that brought their users and some of their concerns that they have raised with respect to the technology. We saw also a presentation on the high exchange rates and the effects on electric power in Kenya, and also another presentation on how we can leverage data on machine learning for energy development. Ladies and gentlemen, today we will wrap up this conference with panel discussions that demonstrate how research and innovation have applied in the energy transition. We also receive an outlook where we have a sector relation to energy transition, and I look forward to your interaction with these very important topics. For the sake who are joining us today for the first time, allow me again to highlight in law as EPRA in research and innovation. The law in Section 10, subsection JJ of the Energy Act 2019 entrusts us as EPRA with the critical task of collecting and maintaining energy data. By gathering and analyzing this data, we lay a good groundwork for a robust regulatory and research framework which is informed by data to ensure that there's an efficiency and sustainability in the delivery of energy services across our country. Apart from hosting the Research and Innovation Conference, we have in the recent past established a fully functional research department to enhance our knowledge management. In this department, we do collect data through our reporting systems and which we use to develop informative reports, which we then disseminate to the public. One of these resources is the Biannual Energy and Petroleum Statistics Report, which highlights energy advancements in the sector. We develop this report in collaboration with our stakeholders and ensure that the resource is quite valuable to the stakeholders and guides investments and decision-making processes in our country. We also adopt research in policy development. We pride ourselves in being a data-driven regulator, where all our regulatory processes begin by collecting data and insights. This will then inform our social, economic, and environmental impact that our proposed regulations will have, which is quite important. Even after approval and our implementation of regulations, this continue to evolve. They are not static, and we continuously seek for input from researchers to ensure that our regulations, one, are fit for local circumstances, and also reflect the current trends and latest advancements in technology, particularly with respect to collaborate with us in these aspects. As I conclude, I wish to appreciate first all of you who took the time to present papers, and those of you who've made time to be here with us. As we close this conference, I also again urge you to go through our booths, look at what solutions are being offered with respect to clean cooking, with e-vehicles, and technology that has been put in place, for instance, with one of our licensees, Kengen. When we had a conversation with Dr. Mutua, I posed a challenge to him, and I said, look, as EPRA, it is our mandate in the law to maintain energy and statistics in the energy and petroleum sectors. One of our licensees, Kengen, has gone ahead and done very well in terms of research and innovation and hosts a very good initiative, I think the Good to Great initiative, which happened in Kisumu a while back, and Kengen have done significantly well. What I did is to challenge our team to do even better, because really the repository and that mandate in the law sits with us as a regulator, and I'm quite happy, and I want to thank Dr. Mutua, Joki, and the team, because the demonstration that we have seen today and yesterday in terms of the quality of papers that we are seeing at the conference, the level of attendance is a testament of the good work that the team at EPRA has done, and I wish to thank them for the good work that they've done. Also, I wish to thank again all of you for making the time to be here, and I hope we do have very fruitful deliberations in day 2, and hopefully close this conference on a high, and again, meet again here next year and make it bigger and better. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, DG, and thank you, Dr. Mutua, for your remarks and the recap for yesterday. Maybe another round of applause. Allow me to recognize our partners exhibiting various innovations that are offering solutions and in our day-to-day lives. We have Kengen, Coco Networks, fusion experience, car in general, toolkit and skills, e-worker, Tefal pressure cookers, band manufacturing, Sistema Bio, and drop access. We have 10 exhibition booths right through this door to your extreme right. And it will be good if you just visited them. At some point, I might be giving gifts after asking a few questions to see how attentive you are. So allow me to go to our next session on quality data. Quality data serves as a foundation for evidence-based policy making, driving effective, efficient, and equitable decision-making processes that ultimately benefit society as a whole. Our next speaker, Mr. Salim Mzamau, will be speaking to us on the role of quality data in policymaking. Mr. Mzamau is a career economist currently engaged at the County Government of Lamu and is a director at Burak Insight, a research and management consultancy firm. He also doubles up as an executive committee member in the highest decision-making organ, the Economist Society of Kenya. Welcome on stage, Mr. Salim Mzamau. Please, let's encourage you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. The Director General for EPRA, recognizing all other dignitaries present and all protocols observed, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Kindly receive our warmest regards from my colleagues in the Executive Committee of the Economic Society of Kenya. The ESK is an umbrella professional body for economists in the country. And as ESK, we are humbly grateful and honored to be one of the dependable partners for EPRA as it undertakes its role in serving the people of Kenya. That being said, there has been a greater push for the world to move to more sustainable and cleaner energy sources while cutting down on the all-time favorite fossil fuels. This push is even further enhanced by evidence from organizations such as the International Energy Agency that strongly suggest fast-tracking transition to clean energy can relieve cost of living pressures. And in Kenya, this transition is consciously laid out in the Kenya Energy Transition Investment Plan, the KETIP. This plan sets out to provide a roadmap for the country to realize an orderly transition to net zero emission by 2050. This is a noble task, we'll all agree, considering that economic growth almost always results in significant corresponding growth in energy emissions. And given that economic growth is a desirable outcome, then it is really imperative that we strategize to reduce emissions and transform our energy systems. However, energy transition should always be based on quality data. Quality data plays a pivotal role in shaping policies for energy transition. It serves as the cornerstone which inform decisions that are made by policymakers. So through accurate insights into energy usage, production, and consumption patterns, policymakers can design strategies that effectively transition towards renewable energy sources, energy efficiency, and mitigate carbon emissions. Furthermore, quality data enables the setting of achievable goals, ensuring that policy objectives are realistic and grounded in reliable information. Regular monitoring of progress is facilitated by quality data, which allows policymakers to track the implementation of energy transition policies, assess their impact over time. By identifying trends and patterns in energy consumptions and productions, policymakers can anticipate future challenges and opportunities in the energy sectors, thereby enabling proactive adjustments to policies. Additionally, Quality data optimizes resource allocation by identifying priority areas for investment, ensuring that resources are directed towards initiatives with the greatest potential impact. Transparent access to quality data fosters public trust in policymaking process and garnering support and engagement for energy transition efforts. But you might know that in the Kenyan case, where the country is likely striving towards more sustainable and renewable energy sources, data becomes indispensable for several reasons. The first one is understanding the current energy usage patterns. Quality data provides insights into current energy consumption patterns, which sources are predominant, and where the energy is being used and by whom. This understanding is crucial for policymakers to identify areas where energy transition efforts are most needed and to inform on the best approach to adopt. The second one is assessing the environmental impact. Data on energy sources and consumption allows policymakers to assess the environmental impact of current energy practices. This includes analyzing carbon emissions, air and water pollutions, and the depletion of natural resources. Such assessments are essential for formulating policies aimed at mitigating environmental degradation. The third one is identifying opportunities for renewable energy integration. Quality data enables policymakers to identify suitable locations for renewable energy projects such as solar, wind, and geothermal power. By analyzing factors like sunlight intensity, wind speed, and geological characteristics, policymakers are able to prioritize investments in renewable energy. The fourth one, evaluating economic implications. Data on energy usage helps policymakers assess the economic implications of transitioning to renewable energy sources. This includes the cost-effectiveness of renewable energy projects, potential job creation in the renewable energy sector, and the overall economic benefits of reducing reliance on fossil fuels. Fifthly, monitoring progress and impact. That's the other reason. Quality data serves as a benchmark for monitoring the progress of energy transition initiatives, evaluating the impact over time. By tracking key performance indicators such as renewable energy capacity installed, carbon emissions reduced, and energy efficiency improvements, policymakers can adjust their strategies as needed to achieve energy transition goals. Then lastly, informing public awareness and engagement. Transparent access to quality data fosters public awareness and engagement in understanding energy transition efforts. Citizens can better understand the rationale behind policy decisions, track progress towards energy transition goals, and participate in discussions about the future of energy, so long as the data remains transparent and accessible to the public. In conclusion, quality data plays a fundamental role in guiding and informing policy decisions for energy transitions in the country. By leveraging data-driven insights, policymakers can develop effective strategies to promote suitable energy development and environmental conservation and economic growth. So as I finalize, I'd like to state that for us at the Economy Society of Kenya, we remain open and committed to supporting EPRA and the Kenyan energy sector in midwifing a data-driven approach to energy transition. Thank you, and may God bless all our efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Salim. We will now go to our next session, which is the opening panel discussion. I would like to introduce the moderator of the session, who will take it up from there. The moderator for this session is none other than Dr. Melba Kapesa Wasuna. She is the External Affairs Manager at Base Titanium Limited, Kenya's largest mining company. Her role involves public affairs and policy, corporate affairs, strategy, public relations, negotiations, governance, and risk management. Before assuming her current role, Melba was a founding director of the Strathmore Extractives Industry Center and the Extractives Baraza based at Strathmore University. She also authored several publications, including reports, journal articles, and books. Melba is a recipient of the She Achiever in Mining Africa Women Awards 2023, 100 Global Inspiration Women in Mining Award 2020, and the Upstream Oil and Gas Awards Woman of the Year Kenya 2019. She currently serves as a chairperson of Mining and Blue Economy Sector Board at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, KEPSA, and the vice chairperson of the Kenya Chamber of Mines. She is also the patron, immediately former chairperson, for the Association of Women in Energy and Extractives in Kenya, IWEC, a platform that promotes and assists the participation of women in the oil, gas, and mining value chain. Melba holds a Doctor of Juridical Science Law from Monash University, Melbourne, Australia, and a Bachelor of Law and Bachelor of Humanities from the University of Cape Town, South Africa. She is also admitted to practice law in New York, in the United States. Welcome, Melba. I can see she's even shocked. I've read all that out about her.
Good morning, everyone. Habari za asubuhi. As you've heard, my name is Melba Wasuna. I work at Base Titanium as External Affairs Manager in Kwale County. And I would like to invite you to this panel session. I've actually been really excited about it. And in terms of laying context, this was the panel that was supposed to kick off the conversations yesterday. But due to outside exigencies, we had to reschedule it today. And maybe it's actually a good thing because we have gotten into the granular level of discussions and had fascinating research. Asante sana Daktari for explaining what transpired yesterday. And now perhaps it's time to bring it all back together and hear from our luminaries in the energy sector. And I'd now like to invite them to the stage. Our panelists for today are our DG, Bwana Daniel Kipto, karibu sana, Professor Isel de Silva, karibu, Bwana Murefu Baraza, and finally Dr. Humphrey Njogu. Please welcome to the stage. As they're making their way to the stage, a reminder that our topic of conversation for this panel session is the role of applied research and innovation in energy transition, challenges, opportunities, and the path forward. And I can tell you without fear of contradiction that we indeed have the best of the best in this country that has to offer. We have here, and we are going to generate a lot of cross-learning. We have government representatives, we have academia, we have got the private sector, and this sort of panel arrangement doesn't come very often, so today, guys, this is our time, okay? These are the gentlemen who most of us would like to have meetings with one-on-one, isn't it? Within our respective work areas. So the I want to do this panel session, we'll start with general questions, and then I would like to hand this over back to the audience for engagement. So please prepare your questions. Look at it from this perspective. If you were to be given a one-on-one meeting, not that they don't give you, but we also know that their time is quite limited sometimes. What would you want to know from these gentlemen? So karibuni sana. I'd like us to have a conversation, gentlemen. And perhaps before we start that conversation, I'd like to take a couple of minutes, perhaps to introduce yourselves to the audience. I will start on my left, immediate left. Please just tell us about yourself, where you work, your research interest areas, so that the audience can familiarize themselves with you and your work. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me on this very, very important conversation. My name is Murefu Barasa, and I wear different hats. So I am the chair of the Kenya Renewable Energy Association, KEREA. I also happen to be the managing partner at EED Advisory, which is a Pan-African consulting company. I also happen to be a fellow at the Energy for Growth Hub, which is a think tank based in Washington, D.C.
Wonderful. I hope you've got some good news for us from Washington. Please feel free to share.
I will try.
Wonderful. Professor?
Checking whether this thing is working, and it is. Okay, so again, Melba, good to see you and have you as a moderator, you know. And so my name is Da Silva, Israel Pereira Da Silva. I'm a Brazilian by birth, you know, but I'm an African by choice. And I am the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research and Innovation in Strathmore University. I am also UNESCO Chair for Climate Change Resilience and Sustainability. And I also a member of the Council of Engineers for the Energy Transition, which is something that was crafted somewhere there in New York some 2 years ago, and there are about 40 engineers in this thing. So I love what I do, and I am that club called the ones who say, thank God it is Monday.
Badadiji, over to you. And in the interest of full disclosure, Professor Israel was my former boss, somebody I have great respect for. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good morning once again. My name's Daniel Kipto. I work at the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority as the Director General. At EPRA, we are charged with the technical and economic regulation of the electricity and petroleum sectors. It's a challenging role because I keep telling people, if you look at other jurisdictions, the role of EPRA regulating the entire value chain in electricity from generation all the way to retail, and regulating the entire value chain in oil and gas from upstream to midstream to downstream, keeps our plate very full. I'm a lawyer by training, but I think like Melba here, these days we don't know what we do. We just work. We just work. But it's a very exciting space. I've worked in the energy sector most of my working life, so this is my bread and butter. I'm quite happy to be here to delve into this very important topic, which is research. And from us as a regulator, I keep saying making data-driven decisions. So I'm quite happy to be on this panel and to engage and interact with you. Thank you.
Asante sana. I recall first engaging with you when I was in Strathmore, very young and fresh. And I must say, DG was one of the people who understood why academia was involving itself in extractives. Back then, it was not so clear why Strathmore was getting into extractives, oil, gas, and mining, and he gave us a lot of time and a lot of grace. So karibu sana. Over to you, Dr.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name is Humphrey Njogu. I'm a policy analyst and also a researcher in this space of energy. I work with a public think tank in the government, and that is the Kenya Institute for Public Policy Research and Analysis. So this think tank is very key in terms of providing a policy advice to the government. And there are a number of research, I think, that I'll also be sharing with you in terms of what we are telling the government to do. And also happy to work also with the EPRA in terms of sharing our thoughts on what the sector should actually be. And also happy, and I'm also very happy to be part of this panel so that I can also disseminate the same to this audience. Thank you so much.
Asante ni sana. So the research agenda, I think we can all agree, in the great energy transition is gaining more and more momentum, isn't it? And we've had these fantastic papers that were presented yesterday. We are all the more enriched for it. And it's, there's a range of topics that are being researched on, and earlier we heard about quality data, e-mobility, green hydrogen, and the like. What we think more and more of us are appreciating is that energy transition necessarily involves beyond technology to also include mining and energy security, geopolitics, geopolitical structure, what that means for us, energy power, energy justice. More and more, we are seeing these topics coming up. The World Economic Forum recently held a meeting on advanced energy solutions and noted that it will require $5 trillion annually, $5 trillion in energy transition technologies for us to be where we need to be. And perhaps we can understand why there's so much focus on energy transition, because look closer to home. The last few months, what have we been experiencing in as far as climate change is concerned? We have lost lives, torrential downpours, flooding have happened. All these are connected to climate change, and everyone can agree that human involvement, or human activity is partly responsible for changing our environmental conditions on Earth. So that's what we are looking at, just from a broader perspective. And today we are privileged, like I've mentioned, to be able to share best practices with our luminaries in the energy transition. And what we want to encourage from this discussion is how we can effect public-private collaboration, to make sure that Kenya flies its flag properly. And indeed, our president has been at the global forefront, really talking about these issues. And so we are in extremely good company. So allow me to get into my first question. And I want to pose this to all our panelists to give you a viewpoint, because you're all sitting here representing different stakeholders. It's fair to say that energy transition as a term, as much as in here, I believe we are all converted. We are all converted towards energy transition. But let's look at it from a macro level. Energy transition remains a somewhat divisive term, For some companies, the notion creates an existential threat, while for others, it creates an opportunity, based on technological innovations, new business developments, whatever the case may be. The transformation of the electricity sector to incorporate renewables, for some, has had negative financial consequences, while others, it has allowed new players to come in, using different strategies, business models, research methodologies, whatever it takes. So my question to our panelists is, what's your take? Is this energy transition the greatest challenge of our time or the greatest opportunity? And as you're answering that, can research, applied research, help us get to your answer? Prof, by virtue of seniority, I will start with you on this one, because also you're in academia, so please.
Thank you very much. I have read here the title, Applied Research and Innovation for Energy Transition, Challenges and Opportunities, depending on the way you are looking at the thing. So the first thing I would like to say is that Kipto, I'm told, somebody told me, the media, Google, that you mentioned the triple helix yesterday, yes. And the concept of the triple helix is a magical one, and we have to have it always in mind as we do something. Because what is important in our life, there are actually two things only important in our life. One is innovation. Keep improving, become a better yourself, isn't it? Innovate. And the second one is communicate, let people know. Then you go back and again, you innovate, you communicate. So this idea of scientists, I feel it is very important because our biggest asset are human beings. No roads, no buildings, no satellites around, human beings. Yeah? So what happens is that each one of us actually can choose to be someone who sees a problem and complains a bit and complains again until he's very good at complaining. Normally, they are not good at anything else when people complain. Or he or she decides to become an actor, isn't it? And says, I will not allow this thing just pass by me, but I'll do it. And then to get actually this triple helix, that are three people, as it were, that have a piece of the puzzle. Mine, his, and his. You see, the first thing is government. People have to work with the government. Government is of essence. Someone says, no, you see government, no, don't put them, because if you don't put policies and regulations, your impact is not going to be deep enough, wide enough, and long-lasting enough, isn't it? That's why we have an MOU with the Energy Regulatory Authority here, EPRA, because we need them to do beautiful regulations, you see? That's what we need. So this thing, and then academia. In the task force for e-mobility, academia had to be there. Actually, they invite us. But how about the other universities? Because Strathmore is a teenager university, you know? Only 16 years old, yes. Yeah, but so some people think that you don't need academia. Those professors. Let them go to Greece, present paper, become associate professor, and that's it. No, they have to develop products, discover things, and innovate, yeah? And finally, Melba, the idea of the private sector. If the private sector is not there, you please go back to the drawing board, because it is not going to be a success, yeah? So in the example, for instance, if we say we need a private sector here, we will need somebody who is making money with the green hydrogen, with the electric mobility, with the clean cooking, with access to SDG number 7, access to energy, isn't it? Which for us is county by county. And finally, the nexus, water, food, and energy. This is it. If, I say, if we follow this thing, we will get there. Melba, I say enough.
Thank you so much, Prof. I think what you have managed to highlight to us is that while in broad terms, the energy transition does have opportunities, the stakeholders coming in together to work together is a challenge that needs to be faced head on, okay, in order for us to be productive. So I hear you loud and clear. And because we have been told that people have to work with government, Bwana DG, over to you. The greatest challenge of our time or the greatest opportunity? And as you're answering that question, how does research, now that we've sat here for 2 days, help us craft our strategic goals in this discourse?
Yep, thank you, Melba. I'll just pick it up from where Prof has left. And I think when you speak to the energy transition, the first question would then come is, are we all at the same level? And I think the big conversation around the global north versus the global south. Correct. And I have a pet subject I keep talking about. When you talk about the issue of access, Prof, when you talk about Kenya, has had a very good story, 2012 to 2022, moved from 23, 24% access to now 75, and now we're at the last 25th percentile. So we are in a good place, even within a global south context. Mm-hmm. But then the reality is that we're not all at the same level. So when you speak to a transition, we are not starting all from the start line. It's not a 100-meter race. Some are already 30 meters ahead, others are 10 meters to the finish line, others have an opportunity to start. So you've given, some people have had a head start when it comes to energy development. But the reality, when you talk to the energy transition, is it necessary? It's absolutely necessary. We've seen the ravages around our environment, the unpredictability of our weather, the vagaries of climate change, and the reality is that even though we are at the back of the pack. We are suffering the biggest impact when it comes to climate change. So then, is it necessary for us to transition? I think yes. Probably it's even maybe a better term that we're in a position to leapfrog. Because those who are ahead of us, we've given them a bit of a head start, but there's an opportunity to leapfrog. So the question you've asked is, how do we then benefit from this? From a governmental standpoint, from where we sit as a regulator, and maybe from government also from a policy standpoint, is to prepare. And because for a country, for instance, such as Kenya, our biggest resource is our human resource. How do we position ourselves as a country to leapfrog when it comes to the transition and benefit from the opportunities? We can only do that by being prepared. From a regulatory standpoint, is putting together the policy and legal policy and regulatory framework that will allow us to be in a position to be able to leapfrog and then harness the opportunities that will come with the transition. And I think this is already being seen very actively. From us as a regulator, we are at the tip of the spear. We're developing regulations. What we saw yesterday when it comes to e-mobility, we approved an e-mobility tariff dedicated in March of last year. We have then gone ahead and developed guidelines with e-mobility. A few weeks ago, we launched guidelines working with the EU and the German Cooperation Agency, GIZ, on green hydrogen. Kenya, again, is a leader in the global south when it comes to green hydrogen, looking to develop the first green hydrogen project in this part of the world, in sub-Saharan Africa, in Olkaria. So that is already an opportunity. Is how do we as a regulator position ourselves to put in place the regulatory frameworks that allows us to leapfrog. Again, it comes from a policy level. What policies are being put in place? I know the Ministry of Transport, Prof, was in that task force that is looking to put in place an e-mobility policy at a national level for the country. Again, when it comes to enabling framework, we have a two-tier system of government. How does the counties then position itself? And I think we are in a very good place because it's an opportunity, but also there's some challenges because all this cannot happen without adequate funding. Prof, the day before yesterday, probably Strathmore doesn't suffer from that problem. I saw our Vice Chancellor sitting with the President. I saw it on news yesterday around financing, this new financing model for universities. How do we get the resources into universities so then we can facilitate our academia to then undertake the research? How do we then facilitate, from a financing standpoint, the startups that the young people coming out of university can be able to transition their research into the real world, from academia into the business side through startups? That also requires funding. And I think our president has also been at the forefront of this, talking about a change in our global financial architecture, because all this can only happen when the right policy and regulatory frameworks are in place. There's an alignment between academia and there's the financing to actually make this a reality. So I think for us as a regulator, our work is cut out, but I think across government and the nexus that needs to be built is really an opportunity, but it's also fraught with some challenges.
Okay, and thank you for that. I think that was quite detailed, and I'd like to pass this over to Bwana Baraza, because we've had opportunities. There's an opportunity here to leapfrog, and I'm wondering from the perspective of private sector, how are you approaching this issue? Because there are people who have perhaps lost and there are people who have gained. Talk to us about that.
Right, so I think the word energy transition is a word that, or is a term that we need to think about a bit more and also deconstruct. So one thing I like pointing out is that energy transition, at least in my view, is not necessarily a move from fossil fuels to renewable energy. I think that is something that I'd like to push back on, because if a household is moving from using charcoal to using LPG, that is also energy transition. And I think in the global south, it is critical that we understand and we put forward this notion that energy transition is not just a move, it is a movement towards renewable energy, but it is a transition. It's not a switching of energy sources. It's not switching from one source to another, but it's a transition. And in actual fact, if you think about it, the history of the world has not transitioned from any energy source, actually, if you think about it. If you think about the history of humanity, we have not fully transitioned from any energy source. So we've been using traditional biomass is still being used. And even if you go to advanced society, whatever you consider advanced, Even those that cook with electricity or LPG will occasionally use charcoal to make nyama choma or barbecue. So the transition is not, it's not a switch, so it's not switching from one source completely to another, but it's a progression. And if you look even at the e-mobility, because now we celebrate fully electric vehicles, but remember there used to be the Prius, which was part fossil fuel and part electric. And then now you have hybrids, and then now you have completely electric vehicles. Now, to the questions of opportunities and challenges, I think it depends on where you sit. So, for example, if your business is centered around fossil fuels, obviously you're increasingly under threat. But if you are moving towards, for example, battery storage, e-mobility, and other cleaner sources, it's an opportunity. Now, the role of research, at least in my view, and this has been discussed a lot here, and even with the other panelists, the role of research, it has many roles, but one of the critical roles is how do you monitor the impact of policy? So, for example, last year, the company I work for did a research for the Ministry of Energy on access rate to clean cooking in Nairobi. And we found that 82% of households in Nairobi now use a clean cooking solution, which was it was very shocking, actually, even to the ministry. And then we asked ourselves, how is it that 82% of Nairobians now cook with clean cooking solutions, yet we've been saying there's a lack of awareness, there's a lack of technical capacity, and all these other issues. And we realized at the bottom of it is that because Nairobi is a cash economy, people can afford, and because Nairobi is highly densely populated, the cost of distributing clean solutions is lower. And you can only get those insights if you have data, if you have research. So I would say the role of research is central in the energy transition conversation, because no matter what we do, even if we make investments, then it's very hard to know what impacts are we gaining unless we have data, unless we are tracking the outcomes of the intervention.
Thank you very much, and perhaps that gives us a really good segue to Daktari there, because you occupy a very interesting niche, you know. You're government, yet you're academia, and I think sometimes you choose where you belong. Nonetheless, as Kenya's repository of information, for lack of a better word, right, on energy transition, you have seen the journey from the very beginning, and Bwana Murefu has given us a really good example of how to think about the transition. For instance, he's talked about moving from petrol vehicles to hybrid to now electric. And so perhaps explain to us the journey that you have undergone using the energy transition prism, but through, backed up by research, okay, and its importance. Okay, maybe talk to us about that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think just maybe also to pinpoint what Mr. Barasa said. When you look at this concept of energy transition, I think really has many meanings, despite that we also have the global meaning to it. Yeah, so I think something that I think is not just about really stopping what you are doing, but we stop, or we actually work towards stopping that, but in a very gradual way, because of all the challenges that we are all facing. So we're in different levels, so Prof has said, different levels. So that means that even as we embrace this energy transition, we are also embracing it in different speeds or rates. Now, that said, I see some challenges and also opportunities that are actually associated with this. And it's not about the losers or the winners, because I think we all need to bring the losers and the winners together. Because we know that there are those who are in the forcing. I'm not saying that they are going to lose, but again, they also, there's something that they also there's something that they also need to do in terms of changing their business model. Again, when for those of us who are also going to embrace the greener technologies like e-mobility, the opportunities that are also going to be presented. But more importantly, there are also challenges that are also going to face. So I think this is a journey that I think is full of issues that need to be thought about. And I'm happy because I think DG talked about as a country, we are a country that is actually just very keen in terms of listening, also observing the global trends when it comes to giving the policy direction that we need to take. If you look at just maybe take an example of what as a country we've actually been doing, we signed the Paris Agreement, which I think is a very good thing, shows a commitment that we are making as a country. Looking at, again, also even the various policies that DG talked about, including the conservation policy, the national energy policy, more importantly, including also the laws that we have also put in place. At the moment, Prof has stated that they're also finalizing the e-mobility policy framework. And again, there are also so many initiatives that we also, we're also seeing especially in the public sector, to drive this. So I think this is a good indication that as a country, we are recognizing that we have no choice but to make that progressive shift towards, addressing our energy challenges by adopting this energy transition, so that we actually not going to be left behind. But more importantly, think about being, in the forefront of using these cleaner technologies. So now, I know the journey has not been very, very smooth, because we are talking of in a situation where we are actually relying so much on, especially, let's talk of just the renewable technologies. You're going to agree with me that most of them actually, when actually you put this context of the global south and global south and global north, most of these technologies that we're actually using, they actually come, most of them actually come from global north. So the discussion that actually we also need to be thinking, or actually to be having, is how do we ensure that we have the global south benefiting from this global north, who are actually the producers of these technologies, who are also, again, also the key implementers of these technologies. So I think this is a discussion that I think we really need to bring out clearly, so that as global south, or even as a country, Kenya, we also have a space where we can actually say, even as we want to move to that, or having the net zero carbon by 2050. So this is what we also need to be supported with. And I'm happy because I think DG has talked about what we saw with our president, negotiating, articulating the position for Africa, indicating this is the things that actually we are advocating for. So I think I would say it's a journey that actually we need to really see how well we can actually be able to align our policy, strategies, so that we're not going to be disadvantaged. When you're saying we want to be to have met this target by this time, I think also again you also need to see also have that environment that we are making targets that are actually very realistic, and our brothers are also supporting us to do this. It's a journey actually that we need to see how we can bring everyone on board to support this. Thank you.
Asante sana, and you have raised a very interesting point that has been echoed here by your fellow panelists, this connection of global north, global south, okay? And you have told us that most of the technologies that are streaming down are from the global north. And so perhaps it's not surprising, because to a lot of us, Elon Musk has inspired a whole generation, right? A combination of business and technology, okay? And I think what I want to find out from the panelists, and Prof, this is, perhaps you can start with this, is, have you come across, I'm sure we have them, but please, I want you to give us assurance that you have come across our very own Elon Musks, because we're in the global south. And we are not necessarily discounting the technologies from the global north. We're saying they're great. But we have also had fantastic research here in the last one day by our very own spearheading wonderful research. And so are you able to share with us local stories about perhaps some of the students, some people we've come across who are innovating in energy transition and, you know, to use your words, using research, innovation to help us to transition, us as Kenyans and us as Africans?
Okay, so as I stopped there, the issue of building people, isn't it?
Yeah.
So now, I want to give you a snapshot of what you can do as Kenya, this country, okay? And in this, to be meaningful for this opportunity. It's a problem, but it's an opportunity. So, first of all, you have to decide by yourself whether you want to act in this transition. You want to act, because action is what matters. People talk a lot, but for you to see that talking is very cheap, KRA is not interested in talking. You can talk the whole day, they will not charge you any, tax, nothing. Now do a business, this size, they come for the 35%, isn't it? So it is very important to say, I decide to act. Now, everybody in this room here has an auntie, an uncle, a shosho, or some people that are from your family. They are living up country. And they have a koroboy, and they buy petrol expensively because they can't go to the petrol station. They have a mulika muizi that can be charged only once a week, you see. And they are cooking with the charcoal and firewood when they find. Now, you here, if you say, instead of giving money for Shosho to put petrol in that koroboy, I give her a pico system, a lantern with battery, controller, panel, she will have it. And then, mind you, get her an Oppo or a Techno, you see, such that she is now able to charge that thing every day, and you teach her how to use WhatsApp. She is going to give you the photo of the goat she is going to slaughter for you in Christmas. You know, you are changing. You are part of this revolution of greening the planet on your own area. But if you don't do that, you can't talk. You are not allowed. Why is it that we say, okay, Strathmore is kind of a center of excellence in renewable energy and energy efficiency? Well, we begin by doing, in 2014, Melba, you were there, we said, let's go solar. 600,000 watts of solar systems on the roof, and we were using only 250 because those days we are not yet giving laptop to them, and they had mulika muizi. So we were using less. We registered ourselves as an independent power producer, and we've been selling power to Kenya Power for these 10 years with a PPA, isn't it? At 12 cents of a dollar. It's a lot of money anyway. But when we put it was okay. Yeah? So let us decide to become actors in our life, because then frustration goes away. Because you are doing something, you are acting. And then, example, you want to do a training in solar, to become an installer, is a sidekick. Our president is a Russell, isn't it? So you also be one. Well, can't you go and do T1, T2, T3 training? We are doing it with EPRA. When we finish training the kids, we say, okay, we give you a certificate, you can splash it in your website, but go talk to Kipto, because unless he gives you the license to install, he's the regulator, you will not go anywhere. Then, yeah, this is what we actually do. Then you became very excited. There is a diploma there called climate diplomacy. You are going to learn how the grass and the food can bring peace amongst people and stuff like that. It is there. Then you say, oh, that is interesting. Now, we started a master's. It's called Sustainable Energy Transition Masters, sponsored by the UK. God bless the UK taxpayers. They are there. This 28th of June, this month, we have 10 kids graduating with a master's degree in that. I pray they will all become PS somewhere, isn't it? Yeah, because they began 2 years ago, 12. 2 didn't graduate, 10 are graduating. Much better than the other way around, isn't it? Yes. So then if you are excited, you can do BSc electrical engineer. All the things that we are selling, green, hydrogen, etc., are mainstreamed in that degree. So it's an opportunity. So master's, undergrad, master's, PhD. Dr. Musoni, one of your own, is helping us to develop a PhD on energy transition. I did a bit of sniffing around in Europe. They are dying to have that kind of degree. So I may find quite a number of the Wazungus coming here to do our masters, you know? So this is what I say, transform a problem into an opportunity, play the role of an actor, and do something. And then you gather things. You know, sometimes people say, I have a friend who he works for a bank, went to Mombasa, and then he was in that branch there. He was the only one doing MBA. For whichever reason, the bank brought him back to Nairobi after 6 months. He was posted in a place, he was the only one who hadn't finished the MBA. You know, it depends on us, each one of us. I stop here.
I hear you, and it's quite inspiring because you're telling us local problems, local solutions. And importantly, you're telling us and urging us to be an actor in all this conversation, okay? Before I come to you, Bwana Kipto, I'd like to pass on the baton to Bwana Murefu, because from the private sector perspective, okay, what are we seeing, okay, in terms of innovations that are driving opportunities? What are we seeing?
Yeah, I would say that we are quite privileged to be in this environment, and by this environment I mean here in Kenya, because even if you just step outside, you will see some of those companies. You don't need to go far, just out here. I see some of the entrepreneurs even sitting here. I see colleagues from Half Gas who are seated there. There's some colleagues from Ban Manufacturing. So I just got to learn this the other day that the largest cook stove company in the world, not in Africa, but in the world, is actually in Kenya, and this is Ban Manufacturing. You have so many entrepreneurs doing very many interesting and innovative things in e-mobility. You have some of the leading companies on e-bikes being based here, testing solutions around PayGo, using mobile money to finance e-mobility. So there are so many actors in this space. But I want to say that the opportunity is not just here, but it's across the region. Just last week, I was in colleagues in DRC. And in DRC, there are 100 million, an estimated 100 million people who don't have access to electricity. But that is framed as a challenge. But from the private sector, it's seen as an opportunity.
Correct.
The thing is, the challenge is not packaged necessarily in a way that is presented as an investment opportunity, and this is what the government of DRC, for example, is doing. And they've set up a fund, it's called the Mwinda Fund, and they're trying to attract private sector capital. So in that regard, from a private sector perspective, I would say capital and finance follows good ideas and well-packaged ideas, because you can have a good idea, but it's not well-packaged. Or you have a good idea, but it's not in the right environment. So the question of money and capital, be it from the global north or from wherever, because it can be from the east or it can be from elsewhere, capital looks for good ideas. And we package good ideas using numbers. Numbers have to be part of it. You cannot just say, you know, we have hydro resources. How many megawatts are you talking about? What's your tariff? And you can only get to that when you do applied research. And that's why I think this conversation is absolutely necessary.
Fantastic. And I think you've left it off at a really good place that allows us to bring in government into the conversation, because you have made the connection between policy and practice in a variety of manners, okay? Energy Agency, in its most recent World Energy Outlook report, points out that energy transition may require a major course correction to overcome bottlenecks when it comes to the common man, okay? Here at home, we have a dispensation that we are all very familiar with, bottom-up. Direct translation, this is my translation, watu wa chini juu, sindio? And I'm wondering, Bwana Kipto, from where you sit, the linkages between practice, then policy, then practice again, because it is a transition, isn't it? As a leader in the energy sector, when we are looking from the bottom-up perspective, what does an energy transition scenario look like? I think we've had a few examples, but purely from the policy standpoint. And is there a disconnect or more of a connection, you can please tell us which way, between the research that is coming out, we've had examples here, that EPRA is performing. Kerry has also given us some examples. Strathmore has been leading research for 10 years now on the matter. Is there, is research that is coming out working in tandem with policy to advance the bottom-up agenda, please?
Thank you. I think maybe I'll just take a step back and
Sure.
just pick up from what the previous speakers have said. And your question initially was, do we see innovation in Kenya? Do we see entrepreneurship to bring that innovation to life? And I think the answer is yes, because from where we sit, particularly at EPRA, we sit at a vantage point. I personally sit at a vantage point because one, we run an organization that is, from the workforce standpoint, fairly young. We do have the mandate of research and innovation. That's why we're having this conference here. But we also have a lot of initiatives where we have a lot of attachees, some over in this room. We have some of our interns. And do we see them coming up with very innovative solutions? I'd say yes. I see people in the room who are also quite entrepreneurial, some who've done internship at our place, who are also looking, who are not sitting and waiting, because I think Prof's point was you would not sit and just wait and say, well, I'm waiting for government to come and pick me up or the university to come and pick me up. What are you doing yourself to apply what you've learned? And I think that talks about academia, talks about research, is really a good testament of where we are as a country, as a people. Are we tech savvy? And we keep saying we have the best human resource in the continent, which is a fact, but are we transitioning that knowledge into practice? And I think that's where there is a bit of a missing link, is yes, we have the knowledge, yes, we're innovative, but we need to transition that knowledge and research into practice. And I think that goes into the second question that you've asked, is what is the nexus now with government and having enabling policies and a regulatory framework that will enable the bottom-up agenda. As I said, we sit in a privileged position. I chair the Kenya Association of Manufacturers jointly. We run the initiative that with respect to energy efficiency and the conference that we run on an annual basis. Part of that is an initiative that we are working with CAM, particularly with TVETs, to try and move this to the next level, because a lot of times people will focus on white collar and not focus on the vocational training that is required. But there's a lot of good innovation and research.
With our energy giants, really the stage cannot get better. And so please, let's think through any questions that we might have to ask them. And before you, as you are thinking of posing your questions, please introduce yourself, but also answer this question. What does energy transition mean to you? Why am I saying that? Because we have been challenged, that we could be sitting here and we all have different versions of what it means. And that is rich research ground as far as I'm concerned. Let's all hear what we feel energy transition means. To us, there's no judgment, okay? No judgment whatsoever. So let's have a few questions, please, for our members of the panel. Anybody? Okay, one, and then I'll come to you. Somebody the mic.
So we answer what energy.
First, say your name.
First of all,
And then,
my
what
name
does
is Geoffrey
energy transition
Nyasimi.
mean? Yeah.
Since my passion has been in oil and gas for the longest, therefore means everybody should have LPG in their homes. for starters?
Decentralization, so ensuring that all these households are able to use solar panels is not yet, reached there. And those are most of the areas where there's a lot of sunlight, so they're able to use there. So electric, your household, your cooking, you ensure that your education, and of course there are a lot of barriers and challenges. But my question is also related to decentralization, and my question is to the academia, is to Doctor. And I know there are a lot of initiatives and partnerships that probably the academia should have with the private sector and government to ensure that we have more funding into R&D and innovation. I've been to universities where they have labs that actually do a lot of tests of turbines, do a lot of tests of transformers, discussing Forex. And one of the issues is that most of these equipment have to be imported. And you have to import them, then you have to look for foreign exchange. And of course, Kenya, there's a problem with foreign exchange. So is there an opportunity for partnership between academia and the private sector and government to ensure that we fund these labs and come up with innovations and solutions that can be locally done here? So instead of importing turbines and transformers, is it possible to start manufacturing them here in Kenya so that we can save the problem of foreign exchange and imports, and also we can do it to a scale that we can also export to our neighbors? You spoke of electrical engineering, and you're starting a PhD program. Probably those are some of the areas where you can talk with private, and private sector is there and government is there.